First news story of the week, and I think we're going to start with Sony's State of Play. They dropped a surprise one on us, about half an hour worth of content, lots of games in there, some new, some old, and no sign of the PS5 Slim. Interesting stuff. John, I'm going to go to you first on this one. Where do you think we should begin on this one?
Yes, while it is an interesting show, I would like to begin at the end of the State of Play.
Okay,
specifically because of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I think was the most exciting and visually striking thing that they showed during this presentation. This is such a dramatic upgrade over the first PS4 remake. I was going to say the original, but that would be the PlayStation 1 version. But yeah, so compared to the last trailer we saw of this, they showed a ridiculous number of locations. It suggests that the story that they're going to tell here is going much further than I even expected. Basically, like, they showed the weapons, they showed a bunch of stuff that kind of makes me wonder, like, what's going to happen with part 3? Like, is it going to be a completely original story at that point? Who knows? But there's climbing chocobos, there's vehicles, there's a Segway, which is awesome. But
yeah, what was that?
I don't even know. But I definitely would like to say we've reached the point where this absolutely blows away the CGI movies we've seen in the Final Fantasy VII universe, just in terms of the real-time graphics. At least what we know is real-time, because some scenes may be pre-rendered, but I do think the majority of this is real-time.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say there's also a guest appearance of Quake 2's Big Gun at some point.
Oh, well, that was in there before Quake 2 release, let's be honest.
I know. But that's the one thing I'm curious about, because I originally watched the trailer in 1080p quality, because that's what they published it as outside of the State of Play recording.
Yeah.
Which
as you
don't. There's so much detail here that 1080p 30 FPS on YouTube is just, I didn't see any of it. But now, after having watched a good deal of it in the real 4K, as on the State of Play stream, re-release, whatever you call it, it's a lot higher quality. And I'm curious, like John, is how much of this is real time? Because some of the shots just look stupidly pristine. Like, there's one shot of them kind of going through a parade. One of the characters on a car, followed by a bunch of soldiers, and there's a ton of just like civilians on the side of the road. And so much movement, and it just looks right, and it's perfectly frame-paced, no issues. I'm curious to see, actually, of the things we're seeing in this trailer, how much of it is real-time, and how much of it is perhaps pre-rendered as video files. Because, the remake on PS4, PC, and I guess the PS5 update for it did have a number of pre-rendered sequences in it.
Yeah, but they were
handful,
they were relatively rare, I would say. Like 98% of the cutscenes were real time, but for very specific high-end scenes, they did use CGI, you're right.
Yeah, I'm curious if they'll like bookend game chapters with CGI.
I suspect some of that was CGI, and we'll see.
Yes.
But either way, it looks great. The geometry density is boosted so far. I was like, wait, is this like UE5 with nanite, or is this just like absurd mesh quality that these guys have put together? Because, the size and scope of these environments is way beyond anything we saw in Remake, right?
Yeah.
In a way that's like, because that game relied heavily on 2D skyboxes, basically. I don't know if I want to, basically, 2D textures mapped to a skybox kind of thing, which could look okay from a distance, but when you sit up close, it kind of fell apart, right? Although they did improve that with the PS5 version. But this actually seems to have just a lot of actual distance scenery that's proper geometry now. And, there's much more variety. Like, obviously, the first part of this takes place in Midgar, right? Like, just like the original game. But in the original game, you would leave Midgar. But with the way they've broken this up, you spent the entire game there. So it all kind of looked a little samey, where this obviously explores much more of the world, and there's a lot more visual variety. It also looks a lot more expensive as a result. Not that the original PS4 release didn't, but
Yeah,
but I think
quality of the assets, the amount of time and effort that must have gone into creating this,
absurd,
it's startling. Yeah, absolutely.
But I do want to raise a tangential point to this, kind of raised by you, Alex, and it relates to trailer quality. So during the State of Play, Sony actually did a premiere, which meant that they could upload a 4K 60 version of the entire show. It looked awesome. Yeah. But on the official, like, Square Enix, I guess, YouTube page, on the Sony YouTube page, they've only uploaded a 1080p 30 version of this trailer. And we were baffled as to why, because if there's any publishers or developers listening here, don't do that. Like, I don't care what resolution the game even runs at. Uploading a low quality 1080p video, no matter how good it looks on the Premiere timeline, what YouTube does with it once it's processed, it destroys image quality. Severe macro blocking. It just becomes this like mess of pixels that you can barely parse, and it can ruin the impression of your games and actually make people feel less positive about them. Because Alex first watched the trailer in the 1080p 30 variant and didn't really see what the big deal was. And then I linked to this, and it's like, oh, this looks completely different and much better. So, like, video quality on YouTube is so important, and I'm baffled that publishers are still not getting this, especially the 30 FPS thing. Like, even if your game runs at 30, upload at 60. You get better frame pacing that way, you get more bandwidth, you get better bitrate, all of this stuff. Like, 1080p 30 is garbage on YouTube. Don't use it.
Oh, it's so bad.
So, end of PSA.
Wow, that was a good rant. I liked it. But you're quite right. You know, the other thing, of course, is they must have added an extra step to downscale it. Surely the original asset would have been captured and edited in 4K. So
yeah,
I hope.
What happened? That's baffling. And it's usually the other way around, where the Sony live streams are actually of extremely low quality because they're using the live streaming functionality. But then the sort of offline version is uploaded later. It is of a much higher quality, but in this scenario it was the reverse. But I'm really glad that Sony got the memo to actually use the Premiere functionality as opposed to using a live stream for a pre-recorded show, because it was just massacring the quality. It was just unbelievable. But that was really good to see. It was a proper presentation. So, yeah, that was great. What games do we want to talk about next? Actually, we've done the end. Let's go back to the beginning and talk about Baby Steps, which I think is probably got a WTF sort of reaction from the audience to start off a big event like this. But I think if they didn't do it, if they put it in the middle, it probably would have been to the game's detriment. You know, at the beginning, you've got the ultimate focus of the audience, and they chose to use that on a very interesting and bizarre looking game that is, as I understand it, a literal walking simulator.
Yeah, it's 3D QWOP is the way it looks. I don't know if you've ever played QWOP.
Oh my god,
John probably has. That's an old. That's an old reference.
It's a deep cut, but
Alex. That is a deep cut.
A deep cut. Yeah, but that's what it looked like to me, and I was just curious, like, how would you actually make QWOP 3D, number one, and also what would you do like as a story in it? You can't just be walking forward, and making it actually just like really just silly and funny, because I thought it was actually a really funny dialogue.
I agree. That was pretty good.
Made me laugh pretty hard. So I don't have to say much about the graphics because it looked super rudimentary in that direction.
Yeah,
but I think that looked like a funny, fun game.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you there. Not a visually stunning game by any means, but the concept and the dialogue is pretty funny, and it actually got me interested. So hats off to them. But following that, though, we again saw that there is no Jim Ryan in this show.
Okay.
So I just wanted to throw that out there because he's usually here, but he wasn't here this time. Instead, we got someone else, which I would say is a nice change of pace. It was Sean Benson.
Agreed.
Or Sean, I don't know if I said her name right, but the director, head of portfolio, global third-party relations. That's an amazing title, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I hope someday I can be an important enough person to have a title that long.
That has global in it.
Okay, leave that with me. I'll work on it. Okay.
Oh, but then they yes, thank you, Richard. I look forward to this. But then they announced Roblox coming to PS4 or PS5 and everything, which it's been on Xbox for a while, and it's interesting to see that this now coming to PlayStation platforms. I believe Sony had issues with the fact that it's all user-generated content. I know Roblox has its issues. I agree with some of those, that there are issues with it, but I've seen what my son does with Roblox and what he's learned just about how games work, how to program, and just like build stuff. all the terms that he uses and knows now, like, I think it's actually a very valuable tool. Kids love it. It's a place to hang out with their friends. They make things together, and it actually teaches them how to do, like, it teaches them important concepts if they're interested in like game development and stuff. And that's I've been continuously impressed with that side of Roblox, right? I think there are some dark holes you can go down with Roblox, as with anything big like this, but I actually still think there's a lot of good stuff in here as well.
Okay, good. Helldivers 2, should we talk about that? I'm not quite sure what to make of this. I mean, it's...
Alex, go.
I was interested about this for two reasons. One, day and date PC, PS5. That is interesting.
That's awesome.
That was also, it's like February. Forget the exact date, February, but day and date PS5, PC, that's pretty rare from a Sony published game. Yeah. So very interesting there. First game is has a very different perspective. Isometric, and this is third person. Seems to be going for like the more hardcore team play thing. But one thing was unlocked 60 FPS trailer with a lot of performance issues. But it's in work in progress, so it's like whatever. It's hard to judge. But that was the thing. But the one thing that I actually really loved about it has a gameplay thing, is that in a lot of these games where you just like play and do like, I don't know, PvE co-op, you know, like it's a lot of just like everyone's worrying about ranking up their gear, and it's like not a lot of actual cooperative play there. I actually like that there was a dedicated loading person. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but there was a player who was literally just reloading the rocket launcher for someone else the entire time. And like the little ammo donkey. And I loved that because it's like actually required team play to do some very basic game function there. And a lot of games don't actually do that. They don't actually make you play in a cooperative way. You just kind of do your things all together, and you see like the damage numbers on screen, and that's about, and the game ends, and you then go on to your next boss hunt or whatever. And this one actually seemed like a required cooperative play to work and actually complete the objective without dying, because the characters were dying the entire time. So bravo on them for seemingly making a game that requires real cooperative play. I don't know. I think this would be a fun one to cover on the channel when it comes out, because it's one of those really rare PC, PS5 day and date releases.
And Alex, I would propose we do a video where I play on PlayStation 5, you play on PC in co-op, and we have a good old time, in addition to perhaps a regular tech review. But I like the original Helldivers as well. It was a fun isometric sort of co-op game. It was even on PS Vita, if y'all remember.
Oh gosh, I forgot that.
So there was a Vita version of this. There won't be a Vita version of Helldivers 2. I'm here to officially announce that's not happening. Oh no. I think I speak for the team when I say that.
Okay. I mean, day and date kind of makes sense for this style of game, right? You want to build an audience as quickly as possible, and just being able to co-opt the PC audience from day one, it just seems like a no-brainer to me. It's very different from like Marvel Spider-Man 2 or Horizon or whatever, where it's a single-player narrative essentially. So it kind of makes sense. Yeah. Visually, anything there that caught your eye?
Other than the unlocked 60 FPS. Most of it was pretty standard.
I would say it's a handsome game artistically.
Okay.
We'll put it there. I think they've done a nice job with lighting some of the scenes, and I think the character models and their materials and like designs look pretty nice. For sure. The world itself, it looks fine. I mean, you could swap that in for like a Starfield planet or something. But I guess there's a little bit more going on in terms of design, but still, it's it may as well be that.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, or as it's put on the docket for this week, Avatar: Something of Pandora. Alex,
I couldn't remember what it was. Well, I mean,
it looked awesome.
There's like Way of the Water. There's I don't know. Did the first
could it be that you were just bamboozled by the quality of the visuals on display and just lost?
Well, I was interested in the visuals, but this is the first time we've seen the game running on PS5 in a 60 FPS mode, apparently. I hope you all noticed that.
I did.
That was different and unexpected. Because I was saying kind of like with the original trailer, it was like a 30 FPS one. I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense that it would be 30 FPS given what the visual target is, the world size, and also the game's using ray tracing. So it was a happy surprise to see 60 FPS and that little captured on PS5 mix of cinematic and gameplay on the bottom.
Yeah.
Visually, A lot of really great stuff here, like I talked about last time. This time I did some, since I was curious about how are they getting 60 FPS, I did some pixel counting. And it was a, pretty easy to pixel count trailer, actually, in comparison to other ones. And here it was like everything was between like 55 and like 65% axis scale for 4K. So it was like, a bit above 1080p to a bit below 1440p internally.
Okay.
And it seemed to be, something up-resed up.
Which, by the way, I count it as good news because it basically supports what they're saying about this being like actual PS5 capture.
Yeah, it does. It actually does. Like, so that's actually positive news. Because originally when I watched it, I didn't notice that little bottom of the trailer. I was like, why are they showing PC footage here? But no, it's PS5 footage, and it looked really, really good. And you actually got a sense that it seems that they're still even using like the RTGI in this 60 FPS footage. And there's a really good instance of it at around 1:15 in the trailer in the first person. They're diving off the edge of a cliff, and there's like floating islands beneath them. And if you look in slow motion, if you want, you can see that there's like how do you call it, boiling RTGI. You can see like, because sometimes when there's like low samples, you can see like a little bit of boiling in the lighting.
I see exactly what you mean.
And you wouldn't see that in a game with just like typical rasterized lighting.
Mm-hmm.
So that is awesome to see.
Honestly,
some great presentation here.
Based on this trailer, so beyond like just the raw tech stuff, like the quality of the asset work, like the animation, everything, the animation of the foliage, the characters, how lively everything looks and moves, I feel like this is going to be a shoe-in for at least the top 3 on our graphics of the year list.
Oh yeah,
like this is honestly like genuinely gorgeous. And I believe it's Snowdrop, isn't it? So
it's the new Snowdrop we haven't seen in a while.
We've not seen this in a while, and Snowdrop is a very powerful engine, right? And
oh yeah,
wow, this is a showpiece for it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and gameplay wise, I did see one very Far Cry moment there, where like when they're walking and they're stalking a group of gentlemen.
Yeah.
There's like a caged up animal.
Oh,
and I was like, this reminds me a lot of Far Cry 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. So very Far Cry looking, maybe a bit Crysis looking as well in there too, which I like a lot. But I can already see the complaints and the comments about it's very unrealistic that you're playing a woman in this game. But it's not unrealistic, of course, that you're a giant blue Navi person on a faraway world.
I did not even go there.
I see you in the comments complaining already.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just wanted to thank you for tanking the like-dislike ratio on this video straight away.
Thanks, Alex.
Well done. Yeah. Oh my word!
It would look great. It looks so good.
It does look fantastic. It's definitely going to be one of the titles I'm really looking forward to seeing, especially on PC, because if they're doing this on a PlayStation 5 with the ray tracing, sky's the limit on PC. You'd hope.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. This is. I hope this turns out to be a showpiece for in-house technology as well. Right.
Yes,
like a non-Unreal game doing like crazy stuff at 60 FPS on a console. Like this is the kind of stuff we want to see, and it's super hard to pull off, but it's looking like they might actually get there. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
and like most of the trailer was a real 62. It wasn't like like we just talked about Helldivers, which was unlocked, and you could see that was dropping a lot. Here, most of the trailer
there was
like
a couple
really
dipped areas where it was dropping, but it was overall pretty stable.
But overall, it was really stable.
Yeah.
So exciting times ahead.
Okay, let's talk about Resident Evil 4 VR and separate ways. John, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's just worth very quickly mentioning that, Village was one of my favorite PSVR 2 experiences thus far. And I'm really happy that they're adapting this game to VR as well, because I never got to play the RE4 Oculus Quest version, which adapted the original Resident Evil 4 into VR. And now they're basically doing the same for this new one. And I love this Resident Evil 4 remake. It is fantastic. I think it's a better game than Village as well, for sure.
Wow.
And playing this in VR, sure. Wow. It's something to be excited for, because we need more big games like this on PSVR 2. We already have a lot of great small games, but more big stuff is also important. And I think people need to understand, if you've not tried, like say Village in VR, that the experience itself is very different, right? Like this is still Resident Evil 4, but it's not the same at the same time. So
Yeah, it's a lot more fine-grained gameplay.
yeah, the focus of what you're doing changes a lot, and it really changes the flow of combat, especially, you know, when you're trying to reload your weapons and like kind of like move your whole body around the scene to try to dodge things. It feels good.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about Ghost Runner 2, because directly after this, a demo, quote unquote, dropped. And yeah, you played it, right, Alex? You have thoughts?
Yeah.
Opinions?
I didn't play it
even.
on PS5. I played it on PC because that's where I originally played the game. And oh my goodness, sacrilege. But I played it on PC, and it looked gorgeous. It sounded great. That was like one of the best parts about the first game. It's just like it immediately hits you with some great beats, and it's very, very fast. It's a lot fun. It's a lot of fun. It's the environments are designed more like an older style game. It's like everything is very carefully placed, and they want you to like, and you have a lot of options to move around, and just be really fast cyborg ninja. It's a lot of fun. And the main character sounded like Raiden. I don't know what that was about. But the one thing that scared me a bit is I played the demo, and it was DX11 on PC, and I've sent Oliver a lot of footage here, and it was pretty stuttery.
On DX11.
And it was DX11. Obviously, you can get shader compilation stutter in DX11.
Sure.
There's nothing preventing that. But I don't like this because the game is so fast-paced and it's introducing a lot of new things to you all the time. That shader compilation stutter, or even traversal stutter, which UE4 is just completely stuttery mess of an engine. And like it breaks up the feeling and flow of everything, and I really want to say it directly to the developers. Please, if you're watching this, like you can't control shader compilation in DX11 and Unreal Engine 4, but what you can do is have the game be D3D12, and they already have a grayed out ray tracing option in there, but the demo was on DX11. So if you're going to launch the game also with D3D12, make sure you do an entire ridiculous playthrough of the game using using the engine's ability to capture all the PSOs possible, and then do a lengthy shader pre-compilation step before the game starts up. You can find lots of examples out there and other games that use UE4 that have done this, and it is going to be such a benefit because the first game to this day, if you play it in D3D12, for example, has really bad shader compilation stutter. And this game, since it's been a while and you've seen the complaints, I'm definitely pretty sure a lot of the complaints about the demo on PC are going to be about how stuttery it is. Please make sure your final product doesn't have this, because it's a big detriment to the really otherwise great gameplay.
So the console version should be absolutely sound. Based on the first one, at least, you think? Yeah,
I mean, presuming there isn't any traversal stutter. I couldn't obviously differentiate between the two in the demo. It's just like there was a stutter. So, right. But I would imagine the PS5 version of this is probably pretty smooth sailing.
Okay, I wanted to talk quickly because you've added something here to the docket, Alex, which just basically looks like a complaint. Yeah, I filed it under complaints /rants. HD 2D in general, and then you've just done a list of things that you don't like about HD 2D. Well, what is it?
I don't want to single out
just
any
define
game.
HD 2D first of all for the benefit of the audience.
HD 2D is pixel art in some aspect of the visuals combined with, I would say, aspects of 3D perspective, and then it's usually rendered at a high resolution HD, and this typically means, which is my complaints, a lot of post-processing effects, so like depth of field in the background, usage of things like post-process bloom effects, post-process motion blur effects. Also, a lot of heavy color grading is another thing. So to me, visually, I really don't like this. And I don't think I've really ever seen a game do it in a way that I actually really liked. There's been like a handful on PC. I thought if you've played Songs of Conquest, that does HD 2D in a really good way, I would say. For the most part, although it has a bit too much color grading in it. But basically, I think a lot of people try and get this look of the world like a miniature, like tilt shift miniatures, and doing that though is really hard without like super high quality like offline rendering. And I don't think it works in real time for the most part. And especially the mismatching of like resolutions of elements. Like this is something I complain about in 2D games all the time, that try and do a pixel art look is like, well, that means your text has to be at least pixel arty. That means like the foreground characters have to be the same resolution grid as the, background stuff. Otherwise it just looks weirdly mismatched. And I feel that like extremely when I see HD 2D games. So this is a complaint, and I don't know what exactly it is, but maybe some people in the audience can link me to some HD 2D games that don't look like burnt umber bloom with depth of field, and I will be happily surprised. But man, I don't know. Between this and the Nintendo presentation, a lot of the HD 2D stuff we saw just really wasn't doing anything for me visually. I would have loved to see real 2D.
Do you have any? I'm assuming you have a counterpoint to this, John.
No, I mean, I don't really agree with you, but it's more like
taste.
I agree with what you're saying. It's just it strikes me different. You're completely correct. It's just you don't like the way it looks, and I think it looks fine. But it varies per game. I like the way the Star Ocean looks versus, because it does not go heavy on the depth of field and such. It's a different game. It's not from the same team or the same engine that they've done in the past. Most of the HD 2D stuff we've seen has been Unreal Engine. This is not. But I actually do think one solution to this that would look really cool is if they offered basically downsampling, where they match the pixel res of like the sprite targets or something, and they kind of decimate the scenery to have a strong pixel grid effect, but they still render internally at a much higher resolution. So when you downsample it, you get all this clean, the lines look good. It'll look like CGI at a lower resolution, but that had originally been rendered at a high resolution. And that would help, I think, solve the mismatch problem. And I'm a little surprised. It wouldn't be HD 2D anymore technically, but I actually think an optional decimation mode like that would be a really great feature that would fix this for the people that don't like that mismatch. I think it can look cool though. I like when you see like 2D sprites that have like lighting applied to them and actually cast shadows, because it does look like,
I like that stuff.
It looks like little like board game pieces moving around a 3D world. I think that's nifty, but I can understand the complaints as well. So
I don't have any problem with the mixing of modern lighting and techniques like that. It's more just like, it's really about the mismatching of resolutions and maybe the slight abuse of post-processing. But yeah, I agree with John completely. I would love to see a downsampled version.
You could almost, it's like an inverse of, I remember when they were releasing like PC and like GameCube and Dreamcast ports of Resident Evil games from the PlayStation 1.
Oh, right.
Those games were all 320 by 240 or whatever. So characters would be pixelated, backgrounds were pixelated, but when they released newer versions, they would output it like 480p, right? But the backgrounds were still low res, and you'd have these higher res characters, and the mismatch never looked right. So it's kind of similar to that, I suppose, where you just have a mismatch.
That's the way I feel about it.
And I can get that. But yeah, that's enough of that.
It is, yeah. I've just been,
my complaints.
I was just trying to think of like an outraged YouTube thumbnail I could do of Alex being incredibly upset about HD 2D games, to actually see whether
angry emoji eyes.
Can the YouTube algorithm be gamed to make upset about HD 2D into a viral hit?
Though,
I don't think so.
May I present one counterpoint to this? These games that use this style are games that I like and will play. These are also games that Alex will never play. Like whether they fix this or not, you're not going to play this. This isn't for you.
No.
You're never going to play this game. Wow. So, I could...
Although I did play Songs of Conquest, but that's a very different style of games. Like, I like tactical games, tactics.
Oh,
games,
so you should try Triangle Strategy then.
Triangle? That's the Square one that they released last year, right?
Yeah, that was really good. And that's HD2D.
Isn't the whole Octopath thing exactly what Alex is railing against, though?
Well, I'm just...
yes,
it is.
Yeah, I thought so.
He was never going to play it anyway, though. Let's be clear.
Are you goading him into playing it? That would be quite interesting.
I'll hate play it or something.
It could be some that would be fun.
Good festive content for the Christmas period. Alex, just forcing Alex to play games that he doesn't like the look of.
I actually, that's a pretty funny idea. I'm going to put that in my hat and save it for later.
Okay, well, let's round off the State of Play discussion by talking about Marvel Spider-Man 2. Another phenomenal presentation from Insomniac Games here. It was looking really, really special. A big focus on how they're doing the fast travel mechanic, which looks intriguing. John, your thoughts?
Ja, das ist die Spinne. He's wonderful. As he used to be called. It looks like Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
No, I actually think this trailer was a nice thing to show because it showed multiple different times of day and different areas of the city, which I think showcases that it has a broader range compared to that initial gameplay demo, because a lot of people criticized the way that looked, even though I didn't agree with them, just like I didn't agree with you, Alex, moments ago. I think by showing all these different times of day, it kind of gives us a better idea of how the game's going to be looking overall. And I think just in terms of overall level of detail, density, just the quality of the lighting, everything, it's clearly derived from what they've done before, but it feels like a nice step forward and the expected evolution. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, the one thing is that, like, after having played a number of UE5 based things recently, as well as, I don't know, Cyberpunk or any of these other things, like seeing like rasterized lighting though in an open world context still to me is like, I really wish this is no longer cross gen, but like maybe their next title, what I really would like to see is like ray trace lighting, because I feel like that is the one aspect of the image quality beyond the image quality itself, like in terms of like raw pixels. But like I feel like a lot of scenes, I like the way all the character models look. I love the asset quality, but I feel like some of it is being let down by like the lighting.
I think I can kind of agree. It's just that when they're already doing ray traced reflections everywhere, I just don't think it's realistic to get that in an open world city game with RTGI. Like, I think
with 60 FPS at least, but I think 30 they could
maybe
probably
possibly Insomniac might be able to do it. Actually, that's a good point. I would say that's probably more likely for the Wolverine game they're working on. That actually seems feasible, and given that I'd imagine it's not this type of scope where it's just a giant city. But at the same time, and I agree with you on that, it's Insomniac, just like they get stuff done, and it's nuts. Actually, when you think about how much stuff they've released,
absolutely, for
PS5 compared to like most other companies, it's kind of absurd, and I almost can't understand how they're able to do it. It's not just like, oh, they reused the city. They clearly did not do that. There are some elements that are the same, but there's a lot of new stuff as well. They did Ratchet and Clank in there. They even did, they did PS4 versions of, or PS4 version of Miles as well during that, which is a whole another SKU to worry about. So I don't know. These guys are very efficient, and they produce very nice looking games that run well and feel polished. And I think there's a lot to be said for that.
The fast travel thing was pretty well executed, I thought. That's cool. As well.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, being able to zip between the two characters, basically. And I liked the way they did that transition from the 3D overhead map system down into the gameplay. Like, that just looked freaking, like, super cool.
Yeah. And it was as much about presentation as it was about the speed of the actual data transfer as well. I think that was the key to making it work.
Exactly. It's not just, oh, this thing can load fast. It's more like the way they present that visualization, right? That's the key.
Yeah, right. Because there's one thing is like you could just black the screen and then you just are standing somewhere else, but actually having the character like glide in,
doing it,
or
exactly.
Like GTA 5 style. I always liked how they did it there too. I always think about that, even though I'm not a big fan of that game. But I always did like there was like some sort of weird little run up animation, and they would do like this really awesome like satellite image, like zooming in onto the world. I always loved that a lot too. So that reminded me of that.
Okay. We're going to round off this discussion quickly with a supporter question from James Kenny Chambers. The PS5 Slim is always one step ahead, just like Carmen Sandiego. It's like a myth or mirage. With the announcement of more faceplate colors, seems like it's unlikely to appear anytime soon or ever. Was it even a thing in the first place? Well, this was the announcement, the reveal of what's been dubbed the Deep Earth Collection.
What?
And the blurb on the YouTube sort of page is quite interesting. Forge a new way to play with the sleek metallic finish of the Deep Earth collection, available in 3 lustrous colours for the DualSense wireless controller and matching PS5 console covers, inspired by the powerful hues found in the depths of our planet, and then elevated with a metallic finish for a touch of sophistication. Choose from molten volcanic red, the alluring cobalt blue, or the sleek sterling silver. I'm particularly taken with the word hewn. There. Hewn from the living rock of Stonehenge.
I'll be curious to see what these look like in person. I've always wanted someone to do PS5 shells using like basic car paint, like pearlescent car paint.
Right.
That would look so freaking good.
Okay.
But I think the takeaway here, right, is like they're showing new models again and new covers, suggesting that the Slim is nowhere in sight. And I think that actually makes sense, given that, first of all, the PS5 Pro rumors have pegged that as next year, and I suspect that a slim PS5 would probably launch with it, similar to the PS4 Pro situation. Secondly, you know, they've been selling the Spider-Man 2 collection stuff, or like the special PS5, right, in those packages. With as big of a game as Spider-Man 2 is for Sony, I just don't see them doing all that work and then immediately dropping a slim model, because that would just kind of piss off a lot of customers, right?
Well, you know, the Slim is always one step ahead. Maybe Tokyo Game Show, you know, which I think you're attending, aren't you, John?
I will be there in a week from now, or the Thursday. Okay, you know, basically excellent. A week from now, I will be at TGS.
Okay, awesome. Well, I guess maybe there'll be some answers there, but it's not looking great for the Slim if they're announcing new faceplates.
I think not.
Hewn from the living rock of Stonehenge. But that's it, all we've really got to say about the Sony State of Play, which, looking at the counter here, it looks as though we've spent just as long talking about it as it actually was.